Welcome to the Gilchrist Experience. Today's subject, the Kabbalion, Hermetic philosophy, and our guest today, Reverend Dr. Philip Valentine. This is a book written by three initiates. Hermetic philosophy dates back to, I think some people say, 50,000 BC? And the subject matter, the Kabbalion, refers to Hermes Trismegistus. Trismegistus. Pronounce it for me, please.
Trismegistus.
Trismegistus. Spelled Trismegistus. Known as the ancient Egyptian as the great and master of master. Now everyone supposedly have come and sat at the feet of the master to learn the wisdom, the secret wisdom of the Hermetic philosophy. Now, I personally wanted to go over this book because it's been so helpful to me over the years, because of the basic principle of, the first principle being mentalism, how everything is mental. We should go through the basic, well, I really wanted to talk about a little history about Hermes Trismegistus. I don't know what that is about, that name. Trismegistus.
Trismegistus.
That's a tongue twister for me, because I've been pronouncing Trismegistus all these many years, 30 to be exact, and now I'm corrected today with Trismegistus. Trismegistus. See, it's a mental block with me.
That's all right.
Tell us about Hermes, which is more updated to the Greek god Hermes, which is a reference to.
The Greeks tended to deify most of the works of the ancient Kamites. The earliest Greeks were the Etruscans, the Minoans. The Greeks, as we have been taught them, didn't exist until after the fall of those great black empires.
Right.
So the earliest or the first Greeks were black. They
Okay.
were known as the Etruscans and the Minoans. In fact, most of those pillars that you see in Greece were built by ancient Kemite or Egyptian pharaohs.
Right.
They weren't built by Greeks.
Okay.
They were found there by the European Greeks that you see today.
Okay.
But,
You need the Pantheon.
yeah, the Pantheon and
Okay.
other temples that had the same, what they call Corinthian columns,
Okay.
versus the other types of columns that had the designs on them,
Right.
the different forms and different shapes. All of them came from ancient Chem. But the man that they know as Hermes Trismegistus was actually a principle and an office rather than a man.
Okay. Thrice
The thrice great,
great.
one who ascends to the level of a thrice great master is one who have studied, lived a long time. They said he lived 300 or 400 years. His Hermes was actually called Thoth by the Greeks,
Okay.
but his real name was Jehudi,
Okay.
and that was the ibis-headed god that you see with the quills or with the scroll.
How close is this to Osiris?
Oh, well, Osiris, Osa, is
Osa.
actually Osa,
Right.
is another principle dealing with the Syrian star system.
Okay.
But
The Dogons.
yeah, but
Okay.
but you have to look at the fact that who you call Hermes or Jehudi or the Trismegistus or Thoth, these were offices of great exaltation. These were, like you would say, a professor of this or a professor emeritus of that and so forth. These titles were given unto men like Heru and Osiris. These were titles that were given unto the works of great men or assigned to nature principles
Okay.
that were given physiological form or anthropomorphic forms. So you have a man that took on a principle, and therefore he assumed the mantle of Osiris, or he assumed the mantle of Jehudi. So these were principles rather than people.
Right. Now, I would like the audience to know why we're talking about all this, and especially during Black History Month, because all of the lies that have been told over the years about our history and about who the people in the Bible were, and the ancient Greeks being the originators of civilization, and we come to find out even Greece was built by Black Egyptians,
Yeah, Black Africans.
Black Africans. Right. So this is, I think, especially during Black History Month, take us to a different level of understanding of our history
Yes,
as a people.
yes.
So that's one of my main purposes of bringing this subject matter to you. We might go further to the basic principles of the Kabbalion. Now, the basic principles of the Kabbalion are 7. The most interesting of it is mental transmutation,
Yes.
which is the whole principle of the mentalism, which is the first principle. All right. Now, trying to come up with some questions that. All right. The 7 Hermetic principles. The principles of truth are 7. He who knows these understandingly possesses the magic key before whose touch all the doors of the temple fly open. The Kabbalion. The 7 principles, the 7 Hermetic principles upon which the entire Hermetic philosophy is based, are as follow: the principle of mentalism, and we'll go over each of them separately. The principle of correspondence, the principle of vibration, the principle of polarity, the principle of rhythm, the principle of cause and effect, the principle of gender. These 7 principles, goes on. The first principle, the principle of mentalism. The mind, the all is mind. The universe is mental, the Kabbalion. Now, let's go into that one. I think that's one of the most important parts.
Yeah.
The universe is mental.
Yes.
They're saying biblically that we're a twinkle in the eye of God, and
Exactly.
God being the all,
Right.
as we understand Hermetically.
Yes.
Hermetic meaning the secret philosophy.
Right. The sealed philosophy.
All right, explain that, break it down for the people.
Well, there are certain prerequisites that are going to be necessary for the average person being introduced to this type of information. There are certain prerequisites. There are many ways to see the universe based on it being a mental universe. The way that the 7 principles are broken down, they're broken down from the highest frequency all the way down to the lowest.
Okay.
If you notice, it started with mental and ended with gender.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
So, in understanding that the universe is mental, we know that thought is
Controls
the
everything.
controlling aspect of all things. Overthought is mind,
Okay.
and mind is intelligence.
Okay.
So we break the idea of mentalism into intelligence.
Okay.
The universe is intelligence.
Okay.
To say that the universe is mental means that there is a consciousness that knows itself, that is self-aware, and those who are participating within that self-awareness can become self-aware within that self-awareness. And this is what the journey of the human temple is.
Right.
The physiological body and the breaking down of every part of that body into the 7 principles.
Okay.
You notice it said, he who knows these 7 principles
Right.
has the key to the temple. Well, the temple is the body, the human body.
Mhm.
Knowing those 7 principles opens up the person who is in the vehicle. This vehicle is nothing more than a machine, a 3-dimensional corporeal machine that is here to aid in the evolution of consciousness.
Put into that same principle, raising gender to mentalism, you go from chakra to chakra,
Right.
raising your
So you go
consciousness.
from duality, which is gender,
Okay.
into unity, which is mind,
Okay.
you see. So if you look at the chakras, like you were saying,
Mhm.
there are 7 chakras
Right.
that are
Exactly.
physiologically present in the human body,
Right.
but there are 3 others outside of the body.
Okay.
And when you understand how to manipulate or at least bring those 3 or 7 energies to bear so that they are one focused energy in the Kundalini, then the door to the temple opens up.
The top
chakras, the top three
Okay,
chakras,
okay.
which are vibrating on higher frequencies,
All right.
which are on other dimensional portals.
Okay.
They open up, and then you begin to see rather than just are caught up with the mechanism of the eyes that just looks at things. So the idea of understanding what these principles are is to gain control of the somatic body, the somatic appetites that keep us in ignorance. Somatic appetites are the way we eat now, our pursuit of physiological material things.
Okay.
The fact that we have diseases which are actually the byproduct of somatic appetites.
Okay.
You see, when we have somatic appetites, we have artificial appetites, appetites that are gained through trauma.
Okay.
We gain our experiences, and as we gain experiences, we catalog these experiences in the mind. As the
Right.
mind catalogs the experience, the brain creates a chemistry in order to catalog the particular experience. When you have a memory, you bring back the chemical, and that chemical courses in the brain, and just like a photograph is used, when you pass a photograph through a chemical and it becomes evident,
Right.
that's what you do. You mix the proper chemicals together when you recall a specific experience, and that chemistry brings the pictures back, and you get the recall.
That's why mentalism is really the most important.
Well, that's why they say that we are actually the dream of the Most High.
Okay.
Well, the dream,
The
the
twinkle of
idea
an
is, an idea is that the Most High is ever conscious, all-knowing, all everything. But the fact that it was all everything, it could not know itself. And that's what the book is about. The way it knew itself is to retract from itself. As it retracted from itself, it created a void from itself. And that's where they speak of in the Bible, in the beginning was a void. As the Most High contracted upon itself so that it would become aware of itself, a void was created. In that void, ignorance was created. And in ignorance does one come to know oneself.
Okay.
You see, so the Most High created ignorance in order to know itself. Now that's something like, wait a minute, where's it coming from?
Really?
Why would the Most High create everything? Because the Most High is everything. So why would it not be ignorance as well?
Well, let's go over a couple of other principles, and then we'll have to come back to mentalism, because it really plays a full effect on which is the true mental art, is a mental transmutation.
Yeah, we can get back to that.
Transforming your mental consciousness into reality.
Yes.
All right? Now, the next one is the principle of correspondence. The principle of correspondence is the principle reads as the principle of correspondence: as above, so below; as below, so above.
That's
Look at
right.
Bayan. So it is, as it is an upper consciousness,
Yes.
it relates to the lower consciousness.
Well, it means more than that. What it means is that there is no disconnection from anything.
Okay.
What you
Well,
see
in
as
the
lower
image of
energy.
God.
In the image. Everything is in the image. That's why
Right.
Satan is God as well.
Okay.
So
Right.
the separation of good and evil is an
Right.
illusion. It's a self-generated illusion. So
That's the next principle.
exactly. Well,
Well,
essentially
vibration, one and
vibration.
Yeah.
Well, essentially they're all one.
Right.
It's all one principle.
Okay.
And as the one principle vibrates out into itself, it becomes seven principles. That's what it means.
Okay.
So when you're speaking about good and evil, you're speaking about a thin line of polarities that is grown between correspondences. Evil corresponds to the good and could not exist without the good.
Okay.
Good could not exist without the evil.
So, without the good, you don't have the evil.
That's right, and without the
Without
evil,
the
you don't
good.
have the good.
Okay.
So that's the principle of correspondences.
Okay.
All things are interrelated and will always remain related.
Okay. All right. Now, I'm sure everybody here will understand this one. The principle of vibration.
Yes.
Everything moves, everything vibrates. You know, everybody understands vibes. This is a basic one where we can reach everybody with this one. Everybody
Yes.
understands vibrations,
Yes.
feeling energy coming from everything. But it's not only coming from people, like I
Right.
feel your vibes, but everything vibrates. Everything that exists is moving. Everything is in motion.
Yes.
Now,
That is
let's break that down.
that is the way the Most High extended itself from itself. That is the movement of perfection from its moment of stasis. In the Bible, in Exodus, it speaks of that particular principle as I am that I am. Then there is the I am, and then the I am that will be. The I am that I am denotes a static permanence.
Okay.
All right?
Mm-hmm.
The I am means the recognition of itself. So you went from the I am that I am
Mm-hmm.
to the I am, and then the I am that will be, which moves forward from that static principle.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So as it moves forward, any movement out from the center is a vibratory force
Mhm.
outward. And all vibrations are essentially indicative of the power within the center of the
Okay.
thing.
All right.
So
Right.
when you see God manifested or represented, it's
Mm.
normally a circle with a dot in the middle of it, which incidentally is also the symbol of the sun.
Okay.
So the sun is the highest frequency vibrator in the cosmos and is the youngest form of life in existence.
Mm.
Because
Mm.
as the sun vibrates, it loses its life. As it vibrates out, it gives it, okay, let's just give, for instance, one dot in the middle signifies a specific potency.
Mm-hmm.
That potency has a duration. That duration will vibrate until such time as the core energy that gives forth the energy loses that. Then the energy that is outward begins to collapse on itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where they say that Adam, from the ribs of Adam came Eve.
Mm.
So every sun is a potential earth.
Okay.
This upon which we live today used to be a sun. Until such time, after 1 trillion years, it gave up its light
Okay.
and then began to cool
Okay.
and began to consolidate. And then upon it came all of the things necessary to create what you call Eden in the Bible.
Okay.
But when you speak about the...
Well, that's a metaphor. That's not.
oh, yeah,
real.
but no, these are real.
Okay.
These are actual realities.
Okay.
All suns are the youngest forms of life in the cosmic pantheon
Mhm.
in the universe. The Earth comes next. All Earths that have atmospheres.
Mhm.
Then moons
Okay.
are older. You see, so those are the suns that went before.
Mm-hmm.
The polarity of the Earth itself and the sun is the idea of the sun giving up its life is what you see as Jesus Christ, the
Mhm.
Son that sacrifices his life
Okay.
for the redemption of man.
Okay.
And this is all it means.
All right.
All of what it is that we have today that has become anthropomorphized and into this stupid Grimm's fairy tales that we have in the Bible. The
Mhm.
people who read the Bible have no clue as to what the true meaning of the Bible is. It's a
Okay.
great book of science, but it has nothing to do in it with belief. You don't have to believe in anything in the Bible. You have to study it as science, and then through that science, do you participate in the first principle, which is
Okay.
the
Mental-
principle of mentalism.
Okay. All right. So the whole idea of faith is a mentalism.
Yeah, the whole idea
Principle.
of faith is actually knowledge. Once you have knowledge of something and you've seen it work over and over again,
Mhm.
you have faith that that particular principle will always repeat itself. But your faith in something that you have not yet participated in or have
Okay.
not yet shown the results of is slavery. It's mental slavery. It's more like indoctrination rather than
Okay.
faith. It's
Well,
more
we've
like
been
fear.
We've been indoctrinated to, being black here in America in so many different ways. I mean, it's
Mhm.
countless.
Yeah.
All right.
That's why we should doubt, and we should anything given to us by the European who first came into his own civilization in just last 1,000 or so years.
Right.
Anything given to us in such mass quantities should be suspect, based on the fact
Exactly.
he didn't want you reading, he didn't want you writing, he didn't want you to know anything. So anytime he gives you anything for free, like that cheese he puts in your community, you should be suspect of the cheese, suspect of anything he gives you for free. Anytime he builds you anything for free and says you could participate in it, be suspect of it.
Now, why do you say that?
Because
Because of the rape of Africa over the
because
last thousands of years?
there is nothing that he has ever promised you that he has ever given to you.
Why has all these truths been hidden from us? Because we are the true
Well, yeah.
chosen people?
In the bottom of the Vatican, in the bottom of the the British Museum,
Mm-hmm.
in the French Museum, in the Cairo Museum, there are miles and miles, even in the bottom of the Mediterranean Ocean, where the Roman Catholic Church began to loot Kemet and all of the ancient Abyssinian empires that they conquered. They dumped huge caches.
When did this happen?
Oh,
What year?
about 3 or 4
18?
about 2,000-3,000 years ago,
Okay.
when even as far back as
I
about
thought it started with the Greeks.
yeah, well, not even with the Greeks, but it started to become more consolidated with the Romans.
Okay.
After Rome fell, the Roman Church began to become the prominent force in European manifest destiny dynamic. And it's the Roman Church that pretty much runs all of the Illuminati and all of the different forms that you see today.
Illuminati means what?
That which is the illuminated ones, the ones who have the light around them. In other words, they're the ones who practice the lower principles of Lucifer.
They're not supposed to be extraterrestrials.
Well, some of them say they are, but the Illuminatis came through the setting up of an organization that used to be called the Alumbrados.
Hmm.
And the Alumbrados came out of Spain at the time, and they were a secret organization that was essentially from the schools that the Moors had put down.
Mm.
Now,
Okay.
when the Alumbrados, when Christendom was rising at the time,
What year are we talking?
we're talking BC, about 200 to 65 BC,
Okay.
around that areas. But even when you say about 217 AD, also.
Okay. All right.
With Constantine,
Okay.
all during
Sure.
those times, when
Right,
Constantine was
okay.
born in 217.
Right. Okay.
But what we're speaking about essentially during that time with the rape and destruction of Africa that took over periods of time, of course, we're talking about a history of enormous rape, destruction, and consolidation of information that now, in the hands of people who were about to change the history of the world, they had raped and taken all these works through conquest and now rewrote everything that you had, that your ancient temple masters wrote down. So what the Bible was actually what the ancient temples taught in science as astrology,
Okay.
biology, botany, all of the different sciences, the things that they had whole telescopes. Everything that you've seen that the European enjoys now as technology was already there and in Africa at the time. But you don't think that because what you're looking at is the byproduct of the rape.
Tarzan movie.
Yes, byproduct of the rape and destruction of Africa. So in the bottom of the Mediterranean right now are tools, great tools of science
Okay.
that the ancestors had that were dumped in there by the Roman Church at the bottom of the Mediterranean.
And this is recent.
Lasers,
Is that right?
yes, lasers.
What is it that you?
Periscopes?
Matter of fact, you had you gave a lecture. I think a couple of months ago,
Right.
and you were talking about what was available at St. John's Church,
Right.
right? What was that? What
Well,
was that all about?
all
And then
of
the
those-
following day it burned down.
No, I was talking actually about the fact that it's not what was available at actually St. John's, is that all of the Illuminatis, the Illuminati that you think is like, Rockefeller and all these people,
Okay.
the real Illuminati is actually the Jesuits.
Okay.
And the original Jesuit, who was Ignatius of Loyola,
Mm-hmm.
he was the first Jesuit general. He got a charter to create the Jesuits after the Reformation had set in and it began to take away the power of the Roman Church, which was ruled by princes. You see, all Roman Catholicism is actually about an elite caste of
Okay.
rulers who Constantine raised up from the Christosites at the time when he and about 6 other thugs were vying for the throne of Rome.
Okay.
He recruited the Christosites to work with him,
Okay.
and they helped to topple and make him the emperor, and he gave them all the lands of the peoples that he had conquered. So the church began, the Christian church, had it not been for Constantine, would have been just another footnote. But Constantine resurrected this particular principle, which was an offshoot of Krishna from the East.
And this is 300 years after Christ died.
Well, it's not even Christ didn't exist. Again, you have to go out of that mode of thinking that there was a Christ as a human being. There were many Christed people or anointed people because they were anointed or inspired.
Now, we went through this on a couple, on a couple of my other shows. And you were born
I was
and raised a
born
Catholic.
yeah.
All right. So through your investigation, now this is going back to prior shows. If you guys have seen any of our other shows that we've done, it's a couple of years now. But to update you, give us a little bit of your background. We've gotten off the Cabanion for a minute,
Well,
but we'll come
on
back to it.
Yeah.
But I want you to get a little history of Reverend Valentine, his whole, Catholicism, which
Well,
is
that history is ancient
Up there.
history. I was a boy, and in the West Indies, when you raised in the West Indies, as I was, that's mostly Catholic.
right.
So essentially, everywhere you go where black people are, and essentially today in Africa, they got cathedrals going up all over Africa.
Okay.
You can't get them to get food or a place to sleep, but you got cathedrals.
Okay.
But all over the West Indies, particularly in Trinidad where I came up as a Roman Catholic.
Okay.
Did the altar boy routine, the choir boy routine, the whole 9 yards, confirmation. And I didn't know that I was participating in ancient Kemetic rites at the time. The only people I saw participating in this were Caucasians, doing what I found out to be African rituals. Ancient African
And you were an
rituals.
altar boy also.
Yeah, did
Okay.
all that nonsense.
Okay.
And the whole thing, actually, you see, the Mass is actually a Masonic rite. That's why the Masons and the Catholic Church never got along, because the Masons knew that the Catholic Church was performing a Masonic rite every time they went up to do Mass.
Okay.
Okay?
Right.
So, but to bring it back down around, the Catholic Church, essentially, when I came up and through it, and I began to get sick and tired of all the nonsense, I used to see the kind of nonsense that the priests used to do with the young girls and the young boys over there
Okay.
in my parish in Brooklyn.
So this is your personal
This is
experience.
my personal experience with
Okay.
this nonsense.
All right.
So I used to ask my mother, what's if you're going to be a priest, what's this all mean,
You were vying to be.
Well, I was thinking of going in to do all of this stuff.
Okay.
We were being recruited for that.
Okay.
So, my mother, bless her heart, said, you find your own path. And I would think twice, because she was breaking out of that herself. But after everything began to happen, where I began to pursue knowledge of myself, I began to find out that what we call religion was another state of mind control, and that the three major factions of what we call religion that are dynamically fighting one another and aiding with one another and infighting with one another were essentially the 3 degrees of Freemasonry:
Okay.
Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. These are 3 degrees of Masonry
Okay.
that you achieve.
All right.
So what they've done to what they call the 1,000-headed ass, which is the human population,
Okay.
the cattle are given all of the nonsense to go along and, pray, Jesus was a man and did this. These people know that this doesn't exist. The people who are initiated up in the higher temples know that you're going to worship to keep you in check, to finding out who you really are. In fact, the Christian church has become the most numbed down, dumbed down institution, because as soon as you become a Christian, you're supposed to throw out all reason and logic.
How did you escape this?
I escaped it, fortunately, by maybe coming to my senses, not going back to the indoctrination, not seeing the priests as anything but a human being, because he's been made to look like a what do you call it, of God, looking at the Pope for who they really were at the time. I put it to the people out there that the Nazis were Catholics, that most of
Say that again.
the Nazis were Catholics.
The Nazis.
The
okay.
Nazis were Catholic. The Pope wrote a letter to Adolf Hitler congratulating him when he ascended as Chancellor of Germany.
Is that right?
The Bush family and the Harriman family. The Bush family, Papa Bush Prescott was the banker for the Nazi party over here, and the personal banker for Adolf Hitler. That's the grandfather of your president.
You're kidding.
I kid you not. It's
Oh
in
my
the history.
God.
So the idea behind what Nazi was, and Mein Kampf was not written by Hitler. It was written by the Jesuit Stempfler.
Mein Kampf was
Mein
written
Kampf
by
was
Hitler
written by the
when he was in
Jesuits.
prison, I thought.
It was written by the Jesuits. The Jesuit, if you look at the Jesuits from the time they took, there's an oath that the Jesuit takes.
Is this right?
Oh yeah, the Jesuits are the ones that's behind everything that you see going on this planet today. And it's out there. You can find this information all over, but you don't see it as part of the regular curriculum of knowledge that is given to our children.
Is this what was evident in St. John Cathedral?
Well, we could see that that was a warning, because St. John's is actually an Episcopalian, not a Catholic.
Okay.
And what the Church of Rome is doing,
What?
the Church of Rome is consolidating its power now.
Okay.
There's no more reformational churches. All churches, if you want to become a minister, you have to be ordained by the IRS. Oh, this show is going to get them really stone calling in right now.
You got me that time.
Oh, yes,
Alright.
yeah.
Now,
No,
say
we
that
way
again.
off of this, ain't we?
You always do this to me.
always do
I
that
get
to
a
you,
lesson
right?
every time I have Reverend Valentine on my show, boy. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Now say that again. If you want to
If
be a
you
minister,
want to be ordained as
Right.
a minister in the United States today, you have to
Okay.
go to the IRS to get a 501c3.
oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
The 501c3 now validates whether or not you can be a church, which means the church
Okay.
is no longer an autonomous part
Okay.
of your society. It belongs to the state.
Right.
If you are in a church that flies a flag that has a gold border, then you are an enslaved chattel, because the church now belongs to the government and must teach according to the government. In fact, there are 5 principles, 5 protocols that must be adopted by the reformational churches that have 5 principles that are basically Catholic principles. The idea was that the Reformation essentially birthed the Constitution and the United States of America. Check?
Right.
The Reformational churches became the pyra of the Church of Rome, because it was saying that we don't believe in the infallibility of the Pope anymore. What we will do is read the Bible for ourselves, and from that will we eke out our own meaning. That was like, whoa, we can't have the cattle thinking for themselves. So the Reformational church, when you see Henry VIII, why you think Henry VIII is vilified so much? Because he broke away from the Roman church.
Right.
So did Calvin, Martin Luther.
Right.
All these people who came up broke away from the church because the church was an enslaving institution. In fact, all forms of torture that you see instituted through the CIA were taught by the Jesuits. The way the Jesuits did was, the Jesuits were the ones who essentially established or created or set up the framework for the mind control of the population that was to be conquered. And then the Pope gave sanction to the kings to conquer in the name of Christendom. And it started with the Portuguese king. I forgot his name. He had rights, and I'm wondering, I'm trying to tell these
Give us
brothers.
years. Give me a time.
In the 1300s.
1300s.
1200s, 1300s. And then
When
in
you-
1400, you saw so-called, who is the name of this pedophile and this King James.
Okay.
They wrote a Bible in his name.
Right. King James
Yes,
Version of the
right.
Bible.
This King James Version was so perverted. It came up as a result of the fact that through the Reformation, so many versions of the Bible were coming out that the Catholic Church demanded that they had one authoritarian book that represented the true church.
Now, you know what this does to all the, to me, I mean, personally, as a Christian here. Now, you're putting
Well, what it does is
the Bible, I feel Christ in my life every day. I mean, he's serving my
you
heart.
don't have Christ in your life. You have
Yes, I
somebody
do.
you think is Christ in your life.
Well,
You have a principle that was called by your
if
ancient
the
ancestors.
universe is mental,
Yes.
I'm mentally...
Then you can take any name you want.
I'm there.
Then use Heru
I'm
in
there.
your life.
But I mean, I choose to use Jesus.
Use Heru.
And it helps me.
Use Heru.
I know it helped me save my soul,
Use Heru. It's a more powerful name.
but I choose Jesus
Why?
because it's helped me.
Why do you choose that name?
My mother tells me.
Here we go. Most of us
My
ain't
mother.
met no Jesus. We don't know Jesus from a hole in the wall. And most of the time we dealt with Jesus was because our parents handed it down to us.
Yes.
Now, if we had
I
a
feel
chance...
it spiritually.
Oh, you only feel it spiritually because you've indoctrinated yourself to believe that it's spiritual.
Okay.
Right. So if you get rid of the
But
belief...
it helps me
How does it help you?
mentally.
Mentally, do what?
Mentally, I
Forget
want to
who
be
you are?
Jesus-like. No, I want to be Christ-like.
No, you can't be Christ-like.
Why not?
You're either Christ or you're not.
No, I want to be Christ-like.
If you're Christ-like, then you're an imitation. You
Right.
become unto Christ.
So I
Suffer the children to come unto me, not to try to
well,
be like me.
Well, we went over this once before. You know, my name being Gilchrist.
Well, you know that we all have our burdens to bear. My brother.
You always get me with this one. Yeah, and which means worker for Christ.
I know.
Now you told me all this. My whole
It is worker for
background.
the Christ.
For
See,
the
that's the
Christ.
difference.
Okay.
There is no Jesus Christ. Once the people get that out there, look at me right here. There was no such person.
They're gonna question your sanity.
Oh,
Not
yeah,
theirs.
they have to. Usually, people who have to catch up, the cattle always questions the sanity of the one cattle that says, "Look, I'm gonna go over there to graze," but the other cattle are in the cattle, and they said that there's a gate open, and the other cattle say, "Well, we can't go over there. Why not? Because there's a fence there, but there's a hole in the fence. Go out there and go graze over there. Why will you stay with the cattle?"
Okay.
Not unless it's fear, and most of religion is based in fear. Do you know that your ancestors said that even the devil, even the most evil one, was in the end redeemed? But in Catholicism, there is no redemption. What kind of God creates you, creates the senses in you, creates the potential for knowledge, and then damns you when you exercise them?
Let's go back to this then.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Now we took off from vibrations. Well,
Well, this was a vibration. We
No,
were vibrating, all right.
that was a vibration there, boy. We went everywhere with that one.
Yeah,
All right. Now, no, because it's all mental.
yeah.
It all comes back to mentalism,
Mhm.
how we believe and how I choose to run my life. You know,
Okay.
and I choose Christ
Mm-hmm.
because it's good for me.
Okay.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
The principle of rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall.
Mhm.
The pendulum swing manifests in everything.
Mhm.
The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left.
Amen.
Rhythm compensates
That's
disobey.
right.
And this is principle number 5.
Right. So for every
Rhythm.
lie in the generation, there will always be a truth coming back. So you can believe in Christ now, but as
Okay.
soon as the truth comes in, Christ will disappear.
Well, only reason I bring that up because of the fact that King James was such a wretched individual.
Why would you read a book that was named after such a wretched
Yeah,
individual
yeah.
and then published in 1611, which
Right.
1 year later began the slave trade? I don't understand you all folks out there. You know, y'all don't know nothing about your history, knowing that in the African times that when we ran into the church, it was to plan how to escape, to plan how to burn the master's crop, plan how to kill the master, and how to get out of there for your freedom. That's what church was to our people. It had nothing to do with us going there to look for nobody. When they heard us singing, our singing was also coded with information. In other words, when they knew that there was a group that was escaping and they were going to pass by the church would start singing instructions for them to follow. And they would tell them, wade in the water,
Right.
all different things to tell them how to travel, how to find the Big Dipper and go with the Big
Right.
Dipper. I
Okay.
mean, this was what church was. Church had a function. Church don't do nothing now except keep you isolated inside of a quantum feel-good dynamic.
What
And you
would
don't do anything with your
what
community.
would you-
Billions of dollars are siphoned out of the community every year by the church.
There's a lot of negative, there are a lot of bad preachers out there. You know,
A lot of bad preachers.
a bunch.
What makes them good?
Well,
Because they bring you into alignment with what the controlling
it brings you in
mental
alignment with
diamond?
the consciousness that lies
No, it
within.
doesn't. Because if it is not based in truth, it can't bring you into anything except what the person who has given it to you wants it to bring you into.
Well, I
alignment
look in the
with.
mirror and search for the God that lies within me.
Then if that's the case, you don't need the Bible.
All right, but I choose that as a frame of reference on how people lived in the past.
But then you choose something else.
Well, give me something else to choose
You could
from.
choose the Mahabharata. You could choose
I
the
don't
Veda.
know this. I don't know
That's
these
what I'm
things.
saying. You don't know these. What we need, you could choose the coming forth by day and night. The
But I find a
Perpetuum
lot of analogies, or what you call them, fairy tales in the Bible that really help us in our
Oh,
daily
of course, they
lives.
got simple things that, ABC, love thy neighbor as thyself.
Right.
I mean, everybody could do that, but do you
Right.
need it? My mother taught me that.
Right.
Do you need the Bible for laws?
Okay.
You see, only when man has lost his instincts for right and wrong does he need laws to follow.
Well, the church is a hospital for sinners.
Really?
Isn't it?
Then who is inflicting all of this this pain and all this
I
sickness?
guess the master.
What master?
The Europeans who...
Well, right. So why would
Okay.
you want to run to a hospital where he set up the infliction of the pain and he's going to tell you he's got the cure for it? That's
Well,
nonsense.
now you're going to say that Christianity is a white man's religion?
No, the Christianity we practice today is the white man's religion.
What about ancient...
The ancient Kemites, they had
Okay.
16 crucified saviors. Why don't you pick from one of them?
Okay.
Why do you have
Give
to
me
go
one.
with the one
Give me
from
one.
Rome?
Give me one.
Heru.
Heru. Heru comes from...
From the ancient Kemites.
Osiris?
Yeah.
Or
From
Osiris,
Yeah,
okay.
he was the son of Osiris.
Who was killed by his brother
His
Seth.
brother Set.
Okay,
Exactly.
okay.
There are many crucified saviors. Even Prometheus.
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 That's Greek.
Prometheus was the Greek.
Okay.
Prometheus gave up his life in order to redeem humanity from God, actually.
So you're saying I can be the second coming then?
Oh, yeah. We are all. The second coming is not a Messiah. It's a collective Messiah.
Okay.
In other words, you're looking for one man, just like they want you to keep looking at the Pope, who actually looks like a
Well,
Skeksis.
this leads up to my whole advertisement. I want everybody to become a Gilchrist.
A Gilchrist?
That's my name.
Sure.
Followers of Winston Gilchrist. And watch this show every week.
Oh, you poor
Because I have
fellas.
more,
Poor people.
I have more guests like Reverend Valentine on. Oh boy. Whew.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, wait till they see this one.
Oh, they're going to have fun.
This is
Now, they
Black
know-
History Month.
Yeah, well, they got it. Hey, listen.
All right.
Sometimes it takes a while for people to catch up,
Okay.
but there's going to be an awakening in this country
All right. Number
because it's
six.
already happening in the world already.
Number 6.
Mm-hmm.
The principle of cause and effect.
Mm-hmm.
Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law.
Okay,
The Kabbalion.
right. Now, if you know that and you study the true law,
Mm-hmm.
not what they tell you in the Bible.
Which is the law of the Kabbalion? The
No,
7 principles?
No.
Hermetic philosophy?
For instance, there is a law that governs the temple that you live in, the human body.
Okay.
You do not defile the temple.
Right.
You do not eat certain foods.
Right.
You do
Okay.
not put certain things in it. You do not do certain practices
I do that.
that defile the temple.
Okay.
When you do that, you see that aging,
Mm-hmm.
decrepitude, and disease is a byproduct of ignorant behavior.
But it's mine too.
A byproduct of ignorant behavior. What else is ignorance
Okay.
except you're not into your mind?
Okay. All right.
Disease, essentially, when you look at it with intelligence, disease
Mm-hmm.
is actually a byproduct of health.
Okay.
If you interfere with disease, you interfere with the healing process.
Okay.
That is a law. Do we teach that law in school? No. We teach as soon as something is wrong, you go to a doctor or you go to some form or remedy, whether it be a herb, a vitamin,
Mm-hmm.
or a drug, in order to circumvent what are the symptoms your body is feeling at the time.
Okay.
Not being taught that the body's symptoms is the healing process, you attack the healing process, suppress the symptoms, and think that you're getting better. So now you have the doctors who actually was this Western scientific medical science is actually a byproduct of the Inquisition of Rome
Right. Okay.
and the Inquisition of Spain, because during the time when Europe was at its heights, when Christianity was at its pinnacle, that's when the Dark Ages were here. Does that give everybody a clue? When Christianity was at its height, that's when they call it the Dark Ages, because that's the time when all knowledge was burned, suppressed, tortured out of people. In fact, some of the Europeans were running away from Europe and seeking shelter and sanctuary with Saladin,
Who's Saladin?
the Muslim, the one that they
Oh,
were having
right, okay.
their crusades against.
Again,
because
we're
they could
talking
not.
1300s, 1400s?
Yeah, back in the 1300s, yeah, when the
Okay.
crusades were going on.
All right.
And the crusades were essentially the Church of Rome
Mm-hmm.
attacking all references to its falsehoods, to destroy all evidence of where it took the story of Jesus,
Mhm.
to compile the story of Jesus to make its Bible.
Okay.
You see, there was no Bible and then Christianity. First came Christianity, and then to verify and validate Christianity, a Bible was written. It didn't happen the other way around.
And the King James Version was written in 1611?
No, it was written through 1611. 1611 was the time it was published.
Okay.
It took, I think, 10 years.
Okay. So 1600 you started writing the King James
Started writing the
version.
King James, or at least compiling the information. Because remember, there are 66 books. There were
Right.
65 books, actually.
Well, what happened during Constantine's time?
Well, Constantine and a man named
right.
Eusebius of Caesarea.
That's 300 BC.
Right.
I mean,
Constantine, AD.
All right.
Constantine
All right.
and his cohorts, particularly a man named Eusebius,
Mm-hmm.
began to put together the information that would then compile the tenets of the new church. This new church was to consolidate the Christosites and those who worship Hestos. Hestos in the west, Christos in the east.
Where did the Gnostics fit into it?
That's who they were.
Okay.
The Gnostics were the Hestosites and the Christosites.
Okay.
These two people were warring for power in Rome at the time.
Ah, okay.
And what Constantine said was, we want all the bishops to come together,
Okay.
and then let's consolidate these two philosophies together and create one dynamic.
Okay.
They said, hell no. And what happened? Constantine either murdered most of them and then assumed the role. 300 bishops were the only ones left after Constantine wiped out all the rest. The 300 now, who were with Constantine, said, yes, we're all for it. And then a new religion was born.
Okay.
After they set the tenets with Eusebius and all the rest of them, they began to lie and take out what was not flattering to their new religion, and then put together 65 books. The 66th book, with Book of Revelation, didn't come till the 19th century.
Revelations came.
In the 19th century. The Revelations was not added to the Bible until the 19th century.
So it wasn't an original part of the
It was
King
not
James?
original part of the Bible. That's why you see so many, all of these predictions now coming into play, because the Church of Rome already had the plan structured for its conquest of the planet.
What about Nostradamus?
Nostradamus was a Moor.
Nostradamus was a Moor.
Yeah, studied more.
Nostradamus was a black man.
Yeah, well, they just like they did Beethoven, they lightened his pigment. He was about your complexion.
Beethoven was a black
Beethoven was a black man, so was his teacher Handel.
Handel.
Handel was
Handel's
a black
Messiah.
man. Yeah, Handel was a black man. I tell you that the original,
Oh
and I'm
my
putting on this right now, and I'm thinking of this is not something that's in historic. I'm telling you that the European Caucasian you see playing classical music today, you ain't see him make that music anymore. The boy called Mozart was part of a secret organization that used to give him his, his music. And they're not going to tell you this. They're going to build up Amadeus. I love the story of Amadeus, by the way. I loved his music. But you can't see any European making that music anymore because it wasn't their music. That music came up through the Moors when they came into Spain. The first university of Europe was established by the black Moors.
Well, you're hearing it here. My God.
So
Thank
anything
you.
you know about geometry, trigonometry, chemistry, all of these things that you see that were the high sciences started in Africa. And if you want to see any of the information as proof, go back and start reading Pythagoras,
Okay.
who studied 20 years in Egypt.
That's trigonometry.
Right.
Okay.
His theory was not his own. He took it back to Greece and created his schools with what he learned in the ancient temples of Chem.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. The seventh principle, which is the basic principle, the principle of gender, which is gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles.
Right.
Gender manifests in all planes, on all planes. The principle of gender. And it's not feminine. Well, everything has a feminine and masculine principle.
Right.
Let's go over that one.
That's the one that gets real touchy, the masculine and feminine principle, because everybody wants to be the opposite. You got men who want to be women and women who want to be men. They say to you in the last 35 years when the feminists started bombarding your brain and telling you that you were some sort of chauvinist pig for acting like a man, all the actions of males were co-opted by females.
Okay.
So now your activities were once now chauvinist when you did them. They're now liberation for sisters or women when they do them.
Okay.
So now you're saying, oh no, we're not going to act like this anymore. You misogynist, you chauvinist. This is the kind of nonsense, this is the kind of rhetoric that for the last 35 to 40 years has emasculated men. All right? What has happened essentially is we have become so feminized as masculine principles that we're afraid to act like men anymore. The only people allowed to act like men are on the football field. You can clash and crash and talk. All of the secret citadels, all the temples of testosterone were co-opted by the feminists when they walked into the locker room and say that how we're here to pronounce that this is no longer a male place. But you can find 10,000 women's organizations with no men, but you find me one male organization today. So essentially, you have been factored out. You're no longer necessary. You've invented yourself into non-existence. Now that you have everything working for you, women can do everything now because you created everything around for them to do it. So now the principle of gender is now everybody can be anything they want. Anytime you do not have the masculine and feminine principle balancing anything, which is the principle of polarity, you have polarity collapsing into the one thing, which means that the integrity that has kept that dynamic in place, the balance that has kept dynamic in place, begins to fall into chaos. And that's exactly what has happened to our society. When you take away the masculine principle and the dynamic of the man working, providing, and protecting, the feminine principle teaching, nurturing, and building from within, once that particular dynamic was destroyed, and it was destroyed purposefully by the Christian church. Because then what you needed to do...
That's what slavery did also.
Exactly. Okay. What you had to do, because the first slave ship was the good ship Jesus. So that should have told you right there. Gilchrist,
well,
you need to get away from Jesus.
Well,
Jesus has been the bane of black people. Jesus makes you dull and numb down.
It's been my salvation.
No, Gil, let me see. I mean, I'm gonna try to convert you back to yourself. The Jesus that you worship today is not the Christ. This Jesus was a Michelangelo picture that he took of his cousin.
I understand that.
All right, then once you understand
4 minutes left.
Good. In 4 minutes, I'm gonna try to convert you.
Well, that's.
Look into my eyes.
No, it's mental.
Look into my eyes. That's right.
I understand the basic principle of the campaign.
Eyes.
Now, let's last few minutes, I want to go over mental and transmutation.
Okay.
Now, what you're trying to do, because I have I've read this book over many years. I spent 30 years reading this book.
So did I.
And I understand the mentalism, how the power of the mind, how it creates. I choose to follow Jesus because it's good for me.
Okay.
There's not one way to
no, there's
God.
no one way.
Right?
But pick another name, please. In the name of Jesus, you have become a slave.
And what I choose is good for
you. Why choose the slave master's name?
Because I choose it for me.
Okay, good. Then let's talk about transmutation.
Okay.
All right? Transmutation, actually, once you begin to take away the figurative names and numbers associated with deity, then you begin to see what deity truly is without the frame of reference given to you. Once you give a frame of reference to deity, then you have become consolidated into an ideological aspect of deity.
Explain that.
In other words, if you frame deity within a name like Jesus, or you frame deity within Christ, then that framework may be polluted by any interpretation based on the people who are interpreting it for you.
Well, if I'm interpreting it for myself.
No, you can't interpret it for yourself because what you have been given to interpret can only be activated within the specific dynamic that was given to you.
So is it wrong for me to want to be the second coming?
Yes.
It's wrong?
It's wrong for you because you don't know what the second coming is.
Well, I'm praying to God that he shows me what.
He who?
God.
God who? How you know God is a he?
Well, it's...
See, that's what I'm saying.
I'll go with the Christianity, but I'll even go with the
No, but see, Christianity has you thinking
there's a male and female. I don't mind God being a female.
But then why you call him he? Because you're talking about gender.
Okay.
See,
if
you're going to deal with...
You got me that time.
I'm going to get you every time if you listen. I'm saying to you that you are in a constraint of thinking.
Okay.
Once you have become constrained by your thoughts, then the thoughts can be reinforced by whatever outside dynamic that's in control.
Right. Where's the mental transmutation?
The transmutation comes from when you begin to delete the programming that you function under.
Okay.
The first thing you must delete is your beliefs. Because your beliefs is your acquiescence to a principle that you have no proof of. So what you must now do is to delete the aspect of belief, to start acting now not on your catalog of thoughts that were forced into your mind, force-fed into your mind by your slave master, but those that you acquire through your deleting of all that you have become. Renew yourself every day. Everything you have learned, delete it from your mind. It
Right.
no longer exists. It's in the past.
I'm going to close with the God in me loves the God in you. All right?
Amen.
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 Wow. That was beautiful, man. And most of the things we've done are fascinating, man.
Good.
You know, that's a good one. That's a good one. And you got a copy to take with you. All right?
It'll be good.
All right. We still